children.
Me.
I do.
Imagine if your child came home from school one day with a notification or if the school called you to tell you that their child's school was going to be closed down due to low test scores. You'd probably be thinking, well, that doesn't make any sense, right? Doesn't make any sense to me either. It's pretty pointless. I'm going to tell you about why it's so pointless for schools to close down just based off of standardized test scores, who the victims are and why, and what some alternatives could be to closing down a school just based on these test scores. But why is it so senseless? Well, the ways that the district measures schools' performance is completely faulty. They're paying too close attention to the standardized test scores, which in all reality, the test proficiency of a student only measures their academic achievement at that point. It doesn't measure like the whole deal, how long they've been going there. The current criteria that they're using to judge on the standardized test scores, how focused they are on it, it's more likely to show how bad the demographics are in their general area as opposed to how academically sound the school itself is. It fails to show how ineffective or effective the teachers are also. An 8th grader from New York City I was reading about in an article was talking about his substitute teachers in his school and how they would sit at their desks and literally just play and text on their phones and pay no attention to the students' academic development at all. So this, it shows that these bad teachers are just not doing any good for one. But it also fails to show how effective some teachers are. There's some teachers who are actually very effective with lower performing students, and some studies have shown that these teachers were actually improving these students' grades before the schools actually unfortunately closed down. A lot of urban schools, urban area school districts closing can be detrimental to a lot of the students around there also. In New York City, there's only about a 49.5% graduation rate from students that were displaced by school closings. Students also sometimes have to walk through bad neighborhoods just to get to these new schools that they're assigned to go to. So getting into who the victims are, like I was saying, the students are victims of this big time. There's absolutely zero benefits for displaced students. A study of 44 closed Chicago public schools showed that most of them transferred to academically weak schools. About only 6% of them transferred to top quartile testing schools. 40% were required to enroll on academic probation because of how bad their test scores were previously, and only 42% of them were transferred to lower performing schools. What this translates to is they've experienced adverse test scores even in the new schools, declining academics despite the better performing schools that they've been going to. And even students who have gone to like the very top performing schools, their academic achievement has pretty much just evened out. It hasn't gotten any better, let alone gotten any worse. So that's part of the crazy part. Another kind of bad thing about joining schools together and closing them is that the students at the receiving school are more at risk for academic unachievement than if they were to not have any students come in there. Other victims are the parents. When students transfer to other schools, the parents often have to find different transportation for their kids to get there. The buses for that particular school don't necessarily come in far enough into their neighborhood to pick the kids up. And in a lot of like urban, lower income communities, that can be really hard for somebody. What's also hard is that sometimes the parents feel obligated to try to focus more on their child's academics when if you're in a low income family and you're trying to keep food on the table, you got to work a lot. That's kind of hard to do to just solely focus on your child's academics, as important as it is. The parents aren't told where they can improve on. They're not told where the problem is. If it's a problem with the teachers, if they're not doing their job well enough, if it's a problem with their particular student, if they need help, individually, or if the school itself is providing a lack of opportunities for students to try to boost their academic achievements. Another victim in closing schools down is obviously the teachers and the faculty. Like I said before, some teachers that are really good and help students out a whole lot, they're just absolutely laid off because the school's performing bad when they were actually doing a whole lot of good. Also, like the janitors, the cafeteria people that work at these schools, they're not only now out of a job, but since the school in their neighborhood's closed, they don't really have another avenue to try to seek a job that they already have experience in. There's not as many job openings with jobs that they know how to do. So not only are you completely laying off all these jobs, but they no longer have an avenue to try to find new jobs for what they know. Some alternatives to closing down schools. I think the principle on focusing just on the proficiency rate should be absolutely thrown out. It's completely ineffective. It shows too few aspects on the educational process and how students and teachers are really actually doing and improving. They should focus more on how individual students are doing and how they're improving. One way is to see what the student actually knew prior to that school year or prior to coming to that school, and see how they've been improving throughout the school year and see how they're really doing. The administration would definitely have a better understanding of real improvement throughout the course, or throughout the student's time at school. And they should pay more attention to why the test scores are so low. Like I said, if it's the demographics, if it's the neighborhood conditions, if the teachers are just sitting around texting on their phones, then that's obviously a big problem. Touching on that, it's not a bad idea to do teacher assessments to see how each teacher is doing, if they're improving their students' performance, and so on. Weeding out the good and the bad teachers to see how you can make some real improvement. So, like I was saying, the current system of schools and school districts focusing on standardized test scores alone is completely ridiculous to close a school down. It's detrimental to the students, it's detrimental to the parents, and it's certainly detrimental to the teachers and the faculty, especially for those who don't deserve it or actually doing some good. So, definitely need to figure out some different avenues, and definitely need to implement them before this becomes a nationwide epidemic.
Yay!